All right, how's everybody doing out there? This is Howler Mouse. 15 years of comic book YouTube and philosophy and life and all sorts of things here to show you our proper comic book haul from the Charlotte Comic Con that was actually in Concord, North Carolina, this past Sunday, which would have been April 27th. Josh and I rode down there, had an absolute blast. Uh, Tons of dealers. If you back up on my channel and click some of the live stuff that I did a real quick walkthrough. Showed some of these books in two parts on Interstate 77 North from North Carolina to Virginia. And now we're just going to sit down and we're going to look at these books properly, see what we have to say about them. This is some good stuff. I got to say, we had a blast, an absolute blast. And there's some stories behind how I found some of these books. That just shows you how comic book people are. Very, very. Yeah, we have a very what's the word I'm looking for, man? We can be very kind people to each other. It's wild, and you're going to be hearing Lester in the background. Apparently, something is out in the yard, and he's in the window going after everybody. All right, so look at this. We have John. John is here proper. Be like John. Thumbs up the video. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell so that you can be get an alert to be here from when we're doing these things. And my cat is cracking me up. Oh, look at this. What's up, Charlton? Hey, great to catch you live. Looking forward to the haul. Great to see you here, man. So glad you can do a show there. Uh, Charlton 66 is a busy, busy man, and I'm real glad to have him here. That's fantastic, right? So so right before we get to the haul, let me show you some of the pickups we have here. We have a flyer here for the 28th Virginia Vintage Comics and Collectibles Show in Salem, Virginia. That's right outside of Roanoke, Virginia. And I cannot believe that this is the 28th show that they're having. I can clearly remember probably the past 20, and I've missed very few of those. I have pictures of where I'm cosplaying at this in the 2000s in my homemade Riddler costume. And for you guys that are in the area, this is August 23rd, 2025. Amazingly enough, they get a lot of dealers in a very, they expanded to another room, but this is a grassroots, all about the comic books show, man. They've had dealers that I've seen from Northern Virginia, Georgia. I think somebody came down from Minnesota one year, and you just never know what you're going to find there. So that's going to be great stuff, man. So I'm very excited about that. Then we have the Heroes Con coming up. I was not going to go this year, basically because of the pricing. That's all there is to it, just the pricing. You know what I mean? Things change, life catches up with us. I think tickets have gone up to like $30 a day or something. You'll have to check it out and make sure. But right when I was out, they pulled me back in because, as you can see by the artwork, who's done the flyer here for Heroes Con, June 20th, 2022, in the year 2025. Heroes Con, you can remember when it's coming up because it's usually on Father's Day weekend. But as you can see, it's Mike Allred. And now I have to think about going for one day. Josh and I are talking about it, possibly for one day. There for for a while we were doing the whole weekend, and we were sharing hotels with people and stuff like that. Right off the bat, with the flyers of other people that's going to be there, John Romita Jr. will be there, Jim Starlin, Brian Stillfreeze, Jenny Frizen, Jose Garcia Lopez, who, oh man, I'm so glad to meet him and to be able to get off my chest to him about my childhood with his comics and designs, things like that. Being silly about Atari Force with the man, got a bunch of stuff signed, and then Chris Claremont, but Gary Conway or Jerry Conway, Jerry Conway, Mr. Law and Order story editor himself, and in comics, he's done a few comics, Punisher and Firestorm and whatnot, all that good stuff. So check out Heroes online. I know a YouTuber or two that got a hold of me or messaged or commented asking if I was going because they were going. All right. What do we got here? Breen is here. Put the cat back on. Hey, if he comes over here and stops chasing whatever's outside the window, he will make an appearance. Oh man, been enjoying what I've seen from the show so far in the earlier videos. Yeah, man, we were high on life and caffeine, man. All right. So glad to see Breen. So glad to see Charlton 66. So good to see John. All right, guys. So towards the end, we'll get some stuff. One more thing I want to show. I just put this on Instagram. Going to these comic book conventions, it's kind of like stepping off of YouTube comic book stuff in this little bubble that's on here that I'm well aware is just a bubble. At the Charlotte Comic Con, I'll go ahead and tell you, I heard 2, 3 dealers talking amongst themselves. I heard 3 or 4 people at a table. Um, I'm telling you, man, if I go by what's going on around there, at least North Carolina, CGC is dead. They're not going to do anymore. They hate that they've done it. They do see a purpose for it if you're, selling to somebody from across the world on eBay or something like that, but they were bad mouthing it. And I haven't seen this on any spec channels, but these were all over the walls. I think in one of my live walkthroughs and videos, I zoomed in on this and stuff, right? But I haven't seen this on any spec channels, YouTube, online, Grifton stuff, or anything like that. But for some reason, and if anybody can tell me, let me know. You can go to eBay right now. Right now, I've actually got a little screenshot on my Instagram. If you see this, you can swipe over. But this thing is going for between $99 and $200 on eBay. This little 1992 Sam and Max, the freelance police from Epic Comics, 1992, the official color collection. This is going for big money, and I don't know why. They had a cartoon that my wife and I were watching on Tubi and stuff in the 90s. I had a few other comics, but this is all that is left. I found this in a dollar bin, no doubt in my mind. So if you know why Sam and Max is popping, let me know. The other thing that is popping is issue 1, and I think it's issue 10 or 11, one with Gene Simmons and Kiss and Alice Cooper on the cover of Kiss and Gene and Alice Cooper on the cover. But the Bongo Comics Treehouse of Horror, number 1, and I think it's number 10 or 12, 11 or 12, somewhere in there. Those 2 books were super hot down there and going for over $100, right? And I actually had 2 of the dealers down there say they're not sure what's going on either, but just go through your collection. And he told me if I have anything that says Bongo on it, get it out, put it to the side. So we're good there, right? Okay, guys. So I think that's long enough to have people who are going to peel away from their wrestling on Monday night and whatnot to jump on here. So let's take a look at what we have here, guys. Okay, these are the books that were a dollar a piece, man. These were fantastic, right? So I had 1 issue of this. This was a mini series. I want to say it ran 4 issues, possibly 6 or something. This is book 1. But as you know, if you were there in the 90s, the Batman animated series was just a phenom. Kevin Conroy does not get the credit for being one of the best Batmans ever. And after the show kind of ran its course, they brought it back for a 4th season. And this is the comic book, if you will, that tells the tale in between that last season and the new season when Warner Brothers brought it back. And man, that 4th season really divided people. You know what I mean? But basically, the biggest thing that I'm expecting to read in this, I have issue 3. I flipped through it, and I'm always keeping an eye out for the rest of them. Is basically, I guess, Robin became Nightwing, and Nightwing and Batgirl were dating. I can't remember if they were on the show, and apparently, from what I can remember, Batgirl and Batman hooked up, and that may have been what split them. That's pretty heavy for a cartoon if that's what's going on. So it'll be great to get into this book that came out in 1998 and see if there's any more clues to what's going on, because that's how you can read it in the show. Now, I was very excited to find this. There's times when you're a comic book collector when you go deep. And in the 90s, it used to be I was a Commandy guy from the late 70s as a kid and early 80s and stuff. And people thought that was going too deep into collecting. You know what I mean? I had comic book friends who were just sort of like John Byrne, Batman, Superman, the Avengers. Look at this Age of Apocalypse. And I'm like, all right, I have found one more issue of Commandy, and they're just looking at me. Well, that's kind of how I feel about Stray Toasters, right? I've heard about Stray Toasters. I've never actually seen any pages from it. I've never gotten my hands on it. So I think I found I have found 3 of the 4 issues. And believe it or not, I feel this is a absolute beautiful color by Sienkiewicz. But this is Stray Toasters from Epic Comics. I want to say this was late 80s. When did this come out? Yeah, 1988. Never ran across this. It would be a whole year before I made it to a comic book shop, so it had to be on the spinner rack for me to get it. I have 3 of the 4 issues, and Stray Toasters always seems to be brought up when you talk about Sienkiewicz. So it'll be great to finally get into these. These are actually in pretty good shape. And before there was Dave McKean, there was Bill Sienkiewicz. So it'll be really interesting to get into this and see if it makes any sense. Hello, Lester. Lester has made his way underneath my table. All right, but that is just a beautiful cover, right? I'm pretty sure this is 2, 3, and 4, 1, 3. I don't know, 1, 3, and 4. Who knows? Yeah, model number 1. So I guess this is number 1. So this should be very, very interesting to get into. Yeah. And I have a toaster in the kitchen, so I hope nothing sinister happens where he gets both the oven and the refrigerator and they decide to plot against us. That would just be horrible. Yeah. Here we go. Charleston 66. Salmon Max. Really? Could the fish please be far behind? That would be fantastic. Yeah, I would be, say I'm taking Charleston 66 is making a joke, and I'm sitting here like, yes, like this is real, right? So throughout this, there's a issue 2 of Gru and stuff, right? But I've really been on a Sergio Aragonés kick more than anything. Sergio is one of those guys that, thanks to Mad Magazine, and I always mention the stepdad and everything like that, but Mad Magazine is where, I and most people probably found Sergio and stuff, right? Then there was Plot Magazine, and then some of those old House of Mysteries that he'd have a page or 2 in with Cain and Abel and Eve and the Raven and all that stuff, right? But Gru to me is very nostalgic. That makes me think of 1985. There was 2, 3 issues, probably like issue 11 and 12 or something like that, was always in the house. And then I really have sort of been keeping an eye out to complete the 120 issue run at Epic Comics. And like I said, there's going to be some more Gru mixed in this, right? But this is a Marvel Age talking, obviously this was preview issues. I mean, this was basically 35 cents at your local comic book shops to let you know what comics were coming. And, you get the dates of when the books were coming out. And apparently this is a Gru centric. We have a look at Aragonés's Gru. This is number 25. So this is 1984, I think. So I think this is a preview before the first issue is what I'm hoping for, right? I always grab those Marvel Ages when they're cheap. And this is I finally have a mint-ish copy. I had 3 or 4 other copies of this. Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, DC Comics Who's Who. Those were I loved reading those as a kid. I backed up and was able to get the first volume of the official Handbook of the Marvel Universe. But I love these. This is where I got my trivia. I just soaked this stuff up. This information I would just soak it up, right? Love this stuff. And then they would do updates. And this was update 1989. And this one I was never able to find literally for decades because Venom was hot. Todd McFarlane was hot. All those pre-image guys were just like setting records with their books and everything, right? And Venom, people were just grabbing everything Venom at the time, and this is probably like his real first. I don't know. For some reason, this may be his first appearance outside of a comic, first time he was actually on a cover. I don't know. But for a while, people tried to consider this a key, but basically it's just an early Venom appearance, But, I mean, some of the stuff they did, look at that. You have Mary Jane Watson. This still bothers me after seeing this. You have Mary Jane Watson here, who was like, Anne Margaret of comics, if you will. You know what I mean? John Romita Jr. just drew her, super hot. She actually was a model. And this was the art we got of her. Who did this? I bet it's Larson. Yeah, Eric Larson. So Eric Larson got to do it. But if we go back here to Venom, see, this will just set the comic world on fire, right? So when you get up here, what they would do is they would give you several first appearances, right? I mean, they were very thorough, and I really hope this shows up. All right. So you have them right here. So right here, the first appearances as an alien costume is Secret Wars #8 with that classic Zek cover. All right. And then behind the scenes was Web of Spider-Man #18. You know, pretty much there was a hand that pushed Parker in front of a train or something, and people wondered if that was Eddie Brock and all that stuff. And then his actual appearance. It says it right there, actual appearance, Spider-Man 299, and then his origin was told in issue 300. So the first real appearance of Venom, as stated by Marvel, was Spider-Man 299, not 300. So we'll see the comic book world come crashing down over that. Okay, so that was something else, right? And this was an impulse buy. There's times I'm thinning out for years, for the last couple months and a couple years ago. I thin out the comics, right? I try to thin out the comics. I try to figure out what am I going to read, what I would really need to keep, and I could just not get rid of these Superman adventures based on the WB cartoon. And what a lot of people don't realize is that there was quite a chunk of these written by Mark Miller before he became Mr. Authority. You know what I mean? What's going on there? Warren Ellis did the Authority, and then wasn't Miller? Miller came on #13, and that's where Miller really popped. He'd done Aztec, a lot of things with Grant Morrison, Swamp Thing with Grant Morrison, and took over on his own. But the guy really started popping when he took over Authority back in the day, right? So here's some '90s stuff, and I have not put these in my CLZ app. I still have like 3,000 comics. I probably need to put on that. But we'll see. So I bought this. I may have double dipped. I don't know, but those are just fun, right? And then Wizard Comics. Okay, guys, let's face it. When I get nostalgic about the actual '90s and stuff, I know Wizard ran into the 2000s, but Wizard was Wizard, White Wolf Games, Vampire the Masquerade, Crow, the Spawn cartoon, Image, and Wizard, Valiant Comics. Wizard is right there in the mix, and this is issue 57. I already had this one, but I did not have the cover for the Kingdom Come here, right? So we have the Kingdom Come Superman, Wonder Woman, and that is not Batman. Okay, that is Red Robin. That is Robin. But what is making the Batman here? In the background of this, that is the Wally West Flash, who constantly is in motion, so he's more like a blur, and he's wearing the Mercury helmet of the original Flash. So we've caught a moment in time there. Like if this was a picture, that camera stopped and we got a piece of the feather off of there, right? So there was just such good stuff in here, man. I mean, this was a great time. We had Alan Moore and Jim Lee on Wildcats. This should have a lot of stuff about Kingdom Come. Stardust was a thing. Oh man, where's it at? But yeah, these things are just chock full of great stuff, man. Super Villain garage sales. They had some fun with this. But anyway, this one in here, this talks about Heroes Reborn, where we had Marvel farm out some of their books to Wildstorm and Extreme Studios, and then also Kingdom Come was coming. So that was just a great era and a great time if you could get through the glut of stuff that was coming out in the time. And this is packed. I think I had this back in the day. I'm 99% sure I did. But this is Wizard posters by Ross Perez Lenzler, because Wizard would actually come sealed and you would have all sorts of things in there. Posters that were two-sided. Sometimes it was a calendar on one side. They put the calendar inside. So, all kinds of posters are in there for the era. I have no idea if I'm actually going to open that at some time or not, right? So moving right along here, because, some people, you got to work tomorrow, but I think we're going to continue. Those were $1 a piece. These are the 50-cent books, guys, right? And I went through and I have looked at this, and this is a first printing. I have an assortment of the first 11, 12, whatever it was, Tick magazines, the original ones, right? And some of them were the color specials, some of them were second, third reprints. And as a The earlier the issues, the higher the reprint. And then as we go up, there, and then all of a sudden, Bit Edlin had graduated college, and next thing you know, we got a Tick cartoon, kind of based on these magazines here, right? But this is the New England comic stuff, and this is number 9 with the Chainsaw Vigilante, and for 50 cents, I got a first print. I don't know. I just don't know how relevant, or if there are still hardcore fans of the Tick out there, right? But these books I can read over and over and over. I can watch the cartoons over and over and over. But it's got to be the Ben Edlund stuff, right? And if you don't know who the Chainsaw Vigilante is, he ended up having a mini series that I've got it somewhere, but it's not all that. But basically, the Chainsaw Vigilante hates heroes, the civic-minded five. You can see them in the cartoon, and he comes out and he hates heroes, so he goes at them with the chainsaw, and that cures people of wanting to be a hero when he goes after them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hilarious. He cuts one of them. He's like, "Oh no!" He just barely taps him, and that's enough for them to get a dose of reality, and they hit. So imagine when he goes after the Tick, and the Tick in the next issue, and the Tick is nigh invulnerable. Nice. Okay, guys. Another one that was 50 cents, and I figured why not? It's Geoff Johns. It's a Gary Frank cover. I think this is 2009, so this is when Geoff Johns was not getting into this thing where he was wanting to write like Alan Moore all the time and stuff. So I thought this was just fun to see. We have Geoff Johns bringing in the Creature Commandos, you know, with Superman. So I was a fan of Creature Commandos, and kind of before the show. And these are the original ones from World War II with GI Robot. So that was kind of cool to see. Of course, I actually love the James Gunn Creature Commandos. There's like maybe one or two things of the show I did not like, but we'll see where the characters are going with that. But that's a whole other discussion. Now this is a fantastic Kevin Nolan cover on our man here, Solomon Kane, the Sword of Solomon Kane, number 2 in a 6-issue miniseries. And this was through boxes and boxes of 50 cents. 50, that were priced at 50 cents. So I grabbed this in case I found the other 5 issues, which I did not. I didn't want to all of a sudden find them in one place, then be like, where was that number 2? So I grabbed this. But it's okay, man. It is okay, because you know, there's, what is it, Titan Books? I think Josh was telling me Titan Books has a Solomon Kane book coming out. Solomon Kane is, of course, has the same creator as Conan. Oh man, this is such good stuff. And yeah, and luckily this appears to be a one-shot story. It says end at the end. Brett Blevins art. What year was this? 1985. So I was 12 when this came out. I don't think this was on the newsstand where I was at the time, right? And this is an upgrade. I put back so much stuff that I did not want to be an upgrade. I was like, stop upgrading your books. You've got the books. But when it came to, and this is a Gary Conway book. This should be Gary Conway as well, if I remember right. But when it came to Gary Conway. So when it came to the Crisis crossovers for of 1985, you had the 12-issue maxi series. In the back of the book, it would tell you this panel continues here, or check out this book, and you have the Crisis thing. The 2 issues of Firestorm actually took you into the world as the Crisis was happening. So to me, Gary Conway lucked up and understood the mission of what these crossovers are supposed to do. So without trying to overhype them, I feel like out of all the Crisis on Infinite Earth crossovers, Gary Conway got it. I mean, we got, he stuck in Legia. That almost looks like a panel swiped directly from one that George Perez did. And Raphael, what's this guy's name? Raphael Kayanan. Talk about a unheralded hero. But like where Crisis was going on, this is the one it feels like you were right there in the middle of the Crisis. It tied in my opinion, the best. So yeah, flipping through there pretty fast. But yeah, Harbinger, all that stuff. I love this stuff. That was a great time to be 12. What we got here, Charlton? The guide to the Kingdom Come universe is that wizard, and that wizard's a nice trivia. The character Von Bach from KC is based on the lead singer of the Yugoslavian industrial band Libyak. Oh, that is fantastic. I kind of remember that. I don't know if you saw my last video. What did I do with those books? I already took them in the other room. I don't know if you saw my last video, but I ended up going to a little Comic Con with 6 tables at a community college near me. Uh, 2 of the tables had comic books, and I was able to get in for 60% off. I got an epic collection of the volume 1 of the Hulk, and I upgraded to a larger size Kingdom Come trade that had more stuff in the back and everything like that. And I actually mentioned Von Bach in that video when I got to his page. So that is wild. We're on the same wavelength there. That character, they should have done so much more with that character. Now, like I said, this was for 50 cents, and apparently I'm just getting to be a completist, right? But I have several issues of this Quality Comics Halo Jones, the Ballad of Halo Jones. I have two of the 3 trades that they put together in this, and I read them. And I absolutely, this is the one work of Alan Moore's I absolutely hate. I do not get the love for this character. She doesn't do anything. I mean, she's just sort of existing while other people are doing things around her. And I've been told the 3rd volume that was just sort of not completed, I guess. That's where it all comes together, right? So this is issue number 12, and I'm hoping that is far enough ahead that it comes out of those 2 volumes, but it was 50 cents, right? And people do laugh at me. Well, not laugh, but they are curious of why this gets the reaction out of me that it does when I read it, right? It's because it's tedious. I have seen Neil Gaiman actually make the comment that when Alan Moore told him how Halo Jones, the Ballad of Halo Jones, was going to end, he claimed to have gotten a tear in his eye or was about to cry because it was so beautiful and stuff, right? I'm just sort of like, she hasn't done anything. You know what I mean? Like, stop giving her credit. I was also told that if I was reading 2000 AD, where this strip originated, it was nothing but Judge Dredd and testosterone filled stories and things like that. Then all of a sudden we had this softness in there. And I'm just sort of like, so, that still doesn't tell me anything. So what? You had something sticking out like a sore thumb. I don't know. I don't know. And then we have some more Gru, some earlier issues of Gru, right? Just moving on. And it's blowing my mind because these are in Mylar. I did not realize I was double dipping. I think I just needed this issue 7, but it never hurts to have, extras and stuff, right? But yeah, just again, just digging the Gru. I hope people dig Gru. I hope you check out Gru. Gru is still going. Uh, Now, the Immortal Hulk. If you watch my channel, I'm probably going to sound like a broke record here, right? But several years ago, I stopped at a flea market and saw a bunch of Immortal Hulks for $1. I knew the book was hot. I knew there was some earlier issues going for a lot of money back then, and I skipped them. And I went ahead and went to a comic book convention in Bristol. It's its first one, and it had some dealers there. And my gosh, man, anything that had Immortal Hulk on it, they were charging 30 and 40 bucks, right? Even for the books that were not worth 30 and 40 bucks. And I sort of asked some questions, and I pointed out to one of the dealers, like, I just saw those at a flea market, and man, he got a little aggressive with me there, and I got a little aggressive back, and then caught my breath. So I took it upon myself to do a challenge to where I get all 50 issues. And I think this is the book where there's like hundreds of issues because of all the variant covers and printings. Okay, of those 50 issues, they made a fortune off this. There's no way they didn't. Um, so I have lucked up because I have gotten them for $1 or less. And the first issue I think I found for, I'm glad I put it on YouTube. I think I found it for $3 or $4. I had a second or third print, #1, I got for $1 or something. So yeah, despite maybe the #1 costing a few bucks more than $1, I think I'm just 4 issues shy of having all of these for $1 or less. This was 50 cents. And this is a fantastic cover. I actually remember Alex Ross posting his work here, this cover online right before it came out. So yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah. So, and again, if you remember, I was sort of like not really wanting to buy Marvel, and I heard people really praising this book. And this was the book that I was like, well, I read a few issues, and every book that was, this was like the standard of storytelling in the late 80s, mid 80s at Marvel. I was not getting why everybody thought it was special. And then I started at the beginning, made it to issue 8 or 9, where the Hulk has been chopped up. He's body parts are in jars. His head is just floating there, watching the guy that put him in the jars. And they're in a space satellite on top of that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is genius, because the Hulk was just plotting. He was sitting in that jar waiting for his moment with the disemboweled, just he was cut up into pieces. I'm like, this is fantastic. I finally got the horror aspect of it mixed with some sci-fi. That was amazing. So yeah, we're going to read the whole thing. I think I read that way. I read probably the first 10, 11, 12 issues or something. Then went, I'm going to get them all before I read this, right? So that's the one where I apologized to everybody and said, you were right. I bent the knee. It was like I was wrong. You guys were right. So yeah, it seems like Marvel does their best when they have a kind of a book on a corner doing its own thing nowadays. Okay, so this book here, you have seen this on the channel. I have a video where I talk about Dr. Manhattan being on Mars by himself on a red planet, and he has a blue body. And this is probably my favorite Swamp Thing story now, due to that context, because this is the one where Swamp Thing, in the previous issue, he was in Gotham. Some very bad people were able to find the frequency of the green and cut him off from the green of Earth. And they think they've killed him. Everybody thinks he's dead. And his essence, if you will, is traveling out in space, and he lands on a blue planet. And he grows himself a body out of alien plants. And he's in solitude there. He's talking about how, like, he's trapped there. He's in the blue. Everything is blue. I feel like he's referencing some Miles Davis or something, right? And the artwork is absolutely fantastic. And this is Alan Moore's treatment of what it's, of solitude, of, despite Swamp Thing being a monster, an elemental, if you will, and finding out that he never was human, he really became one of the most human characters of what it was about to be human. And my gosh, when either I was told or put it together, I'm glad I made that video. I have very few videos that I wished had gotten a lot of views, because I put them side by side around the same time that Alan Moore wrote 2 stories around the same time. Watchmen #4, where Dr. Manhattan is on Mars, and this one. And our big clue is everything is the color of Dr. Manhattan. That is Dr. Manhattan blue. And he shows how he was about to go insane in solitude, because being human, we are social creatures. And yet he was able to show that Dr. Manhattan was so far from humanity that he was perfectly fine being by himself, because he was tired of these people and their problems and things like that, right? So this enhances Watchmen, or that issue of Watchmen enhances this story. Genius. Alan Moore sitting there, writing philosophical and experimenting with human behavior and needs and things. This one was in Mylar, which blew my mind. This may have been $1. I don't remember. $1.50, right? I had this and I got rid of it because Days of Future Present is a very weak sequel to Days of Future Past. This was back in 1990, where during the summers of 90 and 91, I believe, during the summer, since all the kids were out of school, and the parents probably had some more disposable income in their mind and things like that, because they didn't have to buy lunches and school supplies and things like that. They would have, 4 or 5 of their annuals cross over. You had Atlantis Attacks, Evolutionary War, and all this stuff. And your mileage varied with how good those were. The King of Pain, that one was horrible, even though I still have them and stuff like that. But I had this one. And why did I get this one? It's not because it's the first appearance of Ahab, but it's because about a year, I think it was about a year before this, year and a half before this, John Byrne had returned to Marvel after his sabbatical, doing Superman and a little bit of Batman and Teen Titans and Doom Patrol and a few things at DC. And we have a cover by John Byrne on the Fantastic Four after he was going to break Jack Kirby's and Stan Lee's record as the creative team on here, and he lasted 5 years. It's things like that. But this Days of Future Present, your mileage will vary, but the first three parts of this was horrible. I think it ended in an X-Men annual, and Chris Claremont brought it home. So part four of this is the only one you need. You know what I mean? Like it pulled it together. That's how I'm remembering it and stuff, right? I'm going to recycle some of these Mylar bags for other books, right? So again, some more 50-cent stuff before we get over here to the 3 or 4 books that I think are outstanding. I have passed this book up a few weeks ago and a few years ago. I don't need to tell people, the seasoned collectors, what this is, okay? But I'm going to tell it anyway. This is the final issue of Manhunter of the 80s. This is 1990, right? I liked Manhunter. And then as I became more seasoned, this John Ostrander and Kim Yale started writing this. It has Sam Keith doing the art. And it was the evolution of a Kirby character, if you will, right? A creation. And he ended up pulling this character into Suicide Squad and things. But then all of a sudden, I've been dabbling in Grendel the last few years, and that was around when this book kind of started already, and I started seeing similarities of one of the bad guys and some of the tools of Manhunter, if you will. And I'm like, oh, this is. And of course, John Ostrander knew the indie market. He was doing Grimjack and things, so he was well aware of Grendel there. But anyway, this is the last issue, and I love how we have an homage to Peter Parker throwing the costume away. We've seen this in movies. We've seen this in several comic books, but we have a full page homage here. And what I like about this is, I've noticed this is that this kind of harkens back to a little bit of Spider-Man, a little bit, I guess, too. Also, we have the shadow where looming down on him is still Manhunter in costume with his nightstick there, So, yeah, I had to get that. It was 50 cents. I like things like that. I now need one more issue of Beowulf. This is number 6. This is the last issue, if I recall. And I thought I had number 1, but I do not. When I got home, looked at my CLZ app and went through my boxes. Apparently, it was a fever dream. I never had the first issue. But, oh man, this stuff is so good. So what I tell people often is that I have much love for the Bronze Age, despite growing up in the 80s and loving those books and knowing that that was a golden time to be collecting. Something about the 70s, the monster books, the horror books coming back, things that were going at Marvel, Swamp Thing, Man Thing. But when it came to and Commandy, the Fourth World, things like that, and all this fantasy stuff that was coming out, Wally Wood and Steve Ditko doing Stalker, things like that, little underrated things. But at the same time, you had things like Superman Family. Superman started working, on a TV station doing the news instead of the Daily Planet. There, a few things were out there. So I tell people when it comes to DC, anything but the superhero stuff. Your mileage will vary with Justice League and Batman and Detective and all that stuff, right? There's some good stuff out there. Don't get me wrong, but basically, when it comes to the Bronze Age, I think DC was king. They had Joe Kubert on Tarzan, and this follows into that. These Beowulfs are actually pretty good. You also had Rima the Jungle Girl and things like that. So yeah, I was glad to discover this, read this. It does play around with Grendel and a few things here, but it is fantasy. It is what it is. Speaking of Jack Kirby, did anybody have Big Jim's Pack, Professional Agents and Crime Killers? The toy set. I've never seen the toys in real life. Never seen them. Look at this stuff. Oh, the art alone. Good stuff. The Labyrinth with the Minotaur in it, right? And there we go. Look at this. Oh, what we got here? Good evening, everyone. Victor Shade. Yes, Victor Shade. I like it. I like that clean stuff every now and then. I like that clean stuff. C. Woodward is here. What is up, guys? Great to see you, C. Woodward. Looks like we got the night shift here, man. I usually do the Sunday mornings. Good to see everybody here, right? So I think there were 6. I can't remember. There was like maybe 6, maybe 8 issues of this. But Gru, again, I showed some Gru stuff before. I'm on a Gru kick. I love when I find this early stuff, right? So Gru's first appearance was in Destroyer Duck #1, right? But before that, Sergio Aragonis had the idea of Gru, back in the 70s, but he couldn't find a deal to where he got to keep the rights. And then along comes Pacific Comics. And from Pacific Comics, whatever, their whole history, uh, ended up going to Epic and stuff, right? So I absolutely love this cover because we are going full on Conan. You know what I mean? We are going full on Schwarzenegger movie poster Conan, and we find out it's just a dream. It's star our lovable Gru, who's probably going to dream of cheese dip next, right? And it's Sergio Aragonis, man. Mark Evanier, translating the story and adding things to it. Um, so this is just good stuff. I like the early stuff where it's a little bit more raw, uh, and they're like sort of building the running gags and the characters that are coming up. So yeah, great stuff here, man. Like I said, sometimes it's just need, comic books should just be fun, right? Okay, and then the Authority, right? So two, three. I must have sold some of these issues of Authority a couple years ago because I had some of these. I remember only needing 3 or 4 to complete my set. But I have a feeling because it wasn't Mark Miller and it wasn't Warren Ellis, I probably got rid of them because it's Tom Pyre and stuff here. But anyway, we got issue 23. I think I just need one issue now. Number 27. The bag needs to be changed, but this is a beautiful copy. But this is Mark Miller written with Art Adams doing the cover and the art inside. I cannot see me giving this up. So perhaps I've got it in a box somewhere. But for 50 cents, I'm like, yeah, I'll recover some of these issues, recover some of these books. Here's number 26. 25, and we'll talk about this Micronauts in a minute and stuff, right? But The Authority is coming up as a movie since that is one of James Gunn's dream projects. #1 of The Authority has gone up. Stormwatch number 37 of Volume 1, where Warren Ellis came on for the first time, which would build up to it, is gone up. And I got 3 or 4 copies of that. 2 of them signed by the artist Tom Ryan. So I'm really looking forward to when we get there with whatever they're going to do with The Authority. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, the Micronauts. This is an interesting book. Okay. Mike Golden artwork, Bill Mantlo doing the writing. And I've heard about people talk about this for years, right? I was a Star Wars guy, all right, as a kid. Micronauts was a line of toys from Japan that a toy company that I don't know if it was Hasbro, Mattel, or whatever, at first had the idea. Bill Mantlo saw some nephews, kids, or something playing with them. I'm butchering the history of this, which is all right, because I wasn't a big Micronauts fan, but I really didn't see any Micronauts issues till they had a 4-issue miniseries with the X-Men, if I remember right. I mean, they were laying around the house, right? But they went with these toys after they turned down Star Wars toys. And Star Wars toys, we saw what happened with that in that movie and stuff, right? So this is a licensed property, and the rumor is the Star Wars and Micronauts licensed properties. I think it was more Star Wars. I think it's Jim Shooter claimed this is actually what kind of saved Marvel from going bankrupt, finally getting some of this stuff right. So this is a beloved book, nostalgic for many people that I've run across. And since I started getting all the issues, I found a huge chunk of them in a pawn shop that I got for like a quarter a piece or something. Um, I've met people when I've asked, I'm like, I need #6. For about 2 or 3 years, I've been trying to find Micronauts #6. It's not a key book. I found the key book, #8, first appearance of Captain Universe, while I was on my anniversary trip in Boone in a antique shop for like $6 or something, right? Anyway, but as I was running across people and vendors and stuff, I ran across 2 or 3 people said this was the only comic book they collected, not the X-Men, not those hot books at the time, not the X-Men, not the Avengers, Micronauts. And they get this look in their eye like they're a kid again. And I can't get over how beautiful of a copy this is because the bag was trash that this was in. Now, let me tell you how I found this. Okay. All right. Let me read this. This is still a very nice, interesting story about how I found this book at the con. So let's read what we have here. Okay, those DC fantasy books, while short-lived, were great comics, fun to read and collect. Iron Wolf, Stalker, Starfire, Tarzan Family. Such a delight to read. And some of those books, I've got like a complete set of the Tarzan family. I'm working on my Tarzan set. I need one issue of Korak. I love getting these forgotten fantasy books because there's no, there's very few people out there really trying to collect them. Um, See, I read that in an interview with Jim Shooter. He said Roy Thomas saved Marvel by pushing for Star Wars. Pretty interesting. It's true. Victor said, yeah, yeah. And I think over the years that's definitely true. Okay, but I think where I'm coming from a little bit is the fact that over the years I've heard people try to say the license of Micronauts. I think they're shoehorning that in there. I think they're misinformed because I haven't really heard it anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, all right, Charlton are all over it. Love the Micronauts. Read the comics and have the toys. I've read up to issue number 5. I kind of get it, and it's very nostalgic. I mean, it feels like 1979. I was 6 years old in 1979, and I can feel it. You know what I mean? Like, wow, like it really does take me back. So, issue number 6. So, when I walked in Charlotte Comic Con with Josh, we actually got in early. People just started walking in. They're supposed to start at 10. When we arrived there, we already saw 4 or 5 people in there through the door going through comics, and I'm looking around like, well, did people get VIP tickets? Are they open? After figuring out how to park and get in a few things, we just looked at the guy who was at the door and said, "Can we go in?" He's like, "Go ahead, might as well." We walk in, the first thing I see is 50-cent boxes and $1.50 boxes, $2 boxes, wall stuff and everything, right? I asked this vendor, "Do you have Micronauts number 6?" Move on to the next vendor. I go through their stuff. "Do you have Micronauts? Do you have any Micronauts?" I mean, I'm looking for number 6. I probably went through about 4 or 5 vendors. And then all of a sudden, I finally make my way to the other side of the convention, if you will, the third row. I went through the first 2 rows. And before I even start looking at the boxes, I look at the vendor. "Do you have any Micronauts?" And then this gentleman, very nice gentleman, he looks at me and he points across the way. And all the way against the far wall is a dealer. He says, "You see that dealer under the funny looking lamp?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." He goes, "I found Micronauts number 6. It's waiting for you. I took it out." And I was like, "Well, thank you." He's like, "Absolutely." He had heard me earlier in the day, 2 hours before this, possibly, say that I was looking for it. And when he ran across Micronauts number 6, he had them put it to the side. I'll walk over there. I kind of look at the lady. I'm like, "Do you have a Micronauts number 6?" And he said, "Yes." He said the man would be coming for this. This thing took on an aura like I was the man with no name entering town, in a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, man. It was good and the bad and the ugly for a minute. I was the man with no name who has arrived to get the Micronauts number 6. That is what a Comic Con and collecting is all about. I have embarrassed myself at Comic Cons for being tired and losing my wallet. Charlton 66 knows about this, and nothing was taken from the wallet. I have helped other people as well and stuff. We're all doing stuff, right? And then this Comic Con, this is why I like this Charlotte Comic Con that's in a hotel in Concord. It's pretty Concord, North Carolina, which is might as well be it's so close to Charlotte, it might as well be the same, city. That's what was so good about this Comic Con. There was this feel with everybody that we're all in this together. Everybody was looking out for each other. I had 2, 3 talks with people through boxes. People were asking what they were looking for. "Have you seen this? I saw it over there." Dealers were fantastic. Josh and I went out into the parking lot and we found a book, and it was a man's old school list of books that he was trying to put together, pages and pages of comic book series, what numbers he needed. He had just happened to hear a guy talk about, he'd seen that book. So he went to the same dealer, took the book back. They called him on the phone and he came back and got it. I mean, this was just a fantastic con because of this stuff, right? So, despite having a full set of Micronauts now, if I read it, decide to, flip it, I don't know if I can give up number 6 because of this story. This book now has a story like my grandmother getting me the leather-bound edition of the complete Frank Miller, like my friends giving me the absolute edition. Charlton 66 giving me Epic Illustrated number 26. Things like that. These books now have stories and memories with people attached to them, right? I am sentimental that way. What can I say? You know, yeah, Victor Shade. Love the Michael Golden art on Micronauts. Absolutely. Yeah. I get it now. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but I can look at it and I get it. The stuff that I like that he did is this Batman special I have with the first appearance of the Wraith and his G.I. Joe yearbook number 2. That G.I. Joe yearbook number 2, I read that when I was about 10 years old, I think, to where seriously, it was another one of those books that disintegrated in my hands over the years. Yeah, so that was it. So now, guys, for 50 cents a piece, here we have Hellblazer. Now, I'll go back and forth with completing all 300 issues because once you get past, I don't know, the 100th issue, and unless it is Warren Ellis or Garth Ennis coming on the book, Mike Carey, Pete Milligan, these guys did their best. The Jason Aaron book, 3 issues I put back. But what I started finding out is are the arcs, your mileage will vary. You know what I mean? There's some, Cobra. Oh my God, I'm going blank. Corbin issues that with I think it was Ed Brubaker, where he's in prison and stuff like that. So it definitely ebbs and flows, right? And I'm very close actually to having all 300 issues, right? So when I find them for 50 cents a piece, that is a yes. Okay, so I went through these, and I've been putting this collection together for I want to say maybe 10 years that I decided to do this. And why did I decide to do this? Not because of any TV show or anything like that, or the Keanu Reeves movie, because I was at Hillsville Flea Market where they turned the entire town into a flea market, and I found number 1 for $5. You know what I mean? And it's a Vertigo comic. I like Constantine. Don't get me wrong. So here's number 114. Not a lot to say about these right now. Number 196, beautiful Tim Bradstreet covers. Tim Bradstreet, I discovered him through role playing in the early 90s when he was doing the Vampire the Masquerade stuff with White Wolf. I have, if I turn the camera around, I have the Crow City of Angels poster over here that he did with Iggy Pop in the corner of it. I had that in the 90s, and over the years, it's probably, if I still have it, it's beaten up, and I was able to order another one online a few years ago. Anyway, Leonardo Manco and Denise Mena. I've never heard of either of these people. I'm probably butchering their names, which is what I do. There's 219. You have to look very close to the cover, but he's about to eat. He's trying to eat John Constantine, apparently. And then we have the same people with issue 227 here. I've never heard of either one of these creators, and I'm finding this cover very, very interesting. It looks like a bunch of it looks like a lot of religious people of different denominations, if you will. I don't know. All right. So now, guys, I think we're going to get to what I consider the good stuff. Here we go. I'm so embarrassed about this. I really am. Ah, yes, the lost wallet ordeal. Panic of the instant relief when that awesome dealer held it for you. Yeah, I was so embarrassed in front of you guys and come a quarter, but what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? You got to move forward and just own it sometimes, right? So these were $1.50, and these are in Mylar, but I've taken them out and they look fantastic. One of these is an upgrade, right? But this is the kind of stuff that really, really is does it for me now when I read this stuff, right? So this is number 27. I actually have the stepdad's original copy from his collection, right? So I read this late 70s, early 80s, and on top of that, he must have still been in the Navy or something, right? Because it has the rings in there. Oh my God, I can't remember one. The Mark Jewelers. It's a Mark Jeweler beat up copy I've carried around for over 40 years, and he had for 10 years before that. You know what I'm saying? So this is not a Mark Jewelers, but this is a Jim Starlin cover. This is Killraven, War of the Worlds, Amazing Adventure. For me, I'm working my way up to those Craig Russell fantastic drawn comics, and the whole plot behind this stuff is that H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, they won, right? And Killraven has come up and he leads a resistance against them, right? A great science fiction story is based on the concept of a novel by H.G. Wells. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's just fantastic and stuff, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I have it on DVD, and I still watch War of the Worlds and some of that 50s stuff when I need to have a calm mind at night to try to fall asleep and stuff. I love that stuff. Here's another issue, number 25. These are beautiful copies that I cannot believe. The deal is they were $1.50 a piece, and if you bought like five, six, or seven, I don't know, five, six, or seven of them, they dropped to $1 a piece. And I was like, I'm fine with just these. I went in with a plan not to keep going. And this is a Craig Russell copy, that what I was talking about, at least on the cover, number 30. So very happy to find those. Great stuff. And now this next book, guys. Oh, whoa, what we got here? Not only do we have Charlton 66, Eric Breen, John, 60 Lefty 62 Lefty Blues and stuff, but the esteemed Gore Vidal has appeared. Hillblazer doesn't disappoint. Now, I think 99% of the time it does not disappoint at all. It's like I said, there's been a few arcs there that the mileage has definitely varied, but overall, yeah. So what we have here is I have a little story with this also, right? First of all, I did not know that a hardback of this comic even existed, right? I walked away twice from this back in the day. 94, I had a chance to buy the Marvel graphic novel of this and decided not to. The comic book store was closing down. I was grabbing stuff left and right. I looked at that. It was a Marvel graphic novel in 1994. This thing came out in the late 80s, though, guys, right? And it was the soft cover one. And I didn't know what printing it was. And I cannot remember what I bought, but I mean, I was cleaning up with the going out of business sale. Lester, what's under there? Yeah, we have some drama with the cats over here. I'm not sure what they're doing. So anyway, all of a sudden this book pops over the last couple years. You know, it's a Mike Mignola pre Hellboy. I think this is like '89. This came out, but I had no idea that this has a dust jacket, as you can see, and it's a hardback. And this is the story of Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange going into the realm of Mephisto to try to save Doctor Doom's mother, right? So, you know, I knew the concept here, right? Roger Stern, Mike Mignola. Like I said, I think this was '89. Yeah, 1989, right? So this is after, at least publishing wise, after his Cosmic Odyssey at DC and stuff. Before he started really exaggerating his characters, doing that classic Batman story where you know, he's in a graveyard and stuff, which is secretly the first Hellboy story, and then moving on to Hellboy and things, right? So yeah, this is sort of grew in popularity over the years, and all of a sudden it popped. So what I'm doing at the comic book convention is that I'm just strolling down an aisle, and I look over and I see this book on the wall. I'd already walked by the place 3 or 4 times and didn't see it. So I'll just walk over. The dealer turns around when his name was JT. I said, how much is that? He went, whoa. He's like, I literally just put it up there, and from his viewpoint, I appeared like smoke. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I was Clint Eastwood, the man with no name at this comic book convention, man. And he's like, I haven't even looked it up yet. I just put it up there and I was going to look it up. So he does a real quick look, and I'm going to tell you, this is one of the few times I've done this. And he said $40, and this is the hardback. So I'm like, yeah, we'll do that. You know, that's within my budget, believe it or not, for a change. But I don't spend money like that. You see the 50-cent books and the deals and the haggling and stuff that I do, right? So somebody else, after we made that deal, some other guy that was beside me watching us talk about this book and, you know, come to that price, he did something now with AI, an AI chat, HG. You people can probably correct me. My wife knows what it is, HGCT or something like that, and found that this thing was going for $150 to $200 on eBay and other sites because it's the hardback first print. So yeah, I came out ahead on that quite a bit, and I actually was thinking about putting it on eBay, but I'm like, man, you passed this book up 30 years ago, and you passed it up again probably a year or two after that. You know, I've always walked away from this book, and then all of a sudden it was something. You know, and of course with the movies and stuff, right? What do we got here? Amazing Adventures 39, Killraven in a nightmare world with various monstrous Marvel characters. The Iron Man books look something like Iron Man of 2020. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about, Charlton 66. Yes. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? And speaking of Iron Man and stuff like that, you'll have to look it up. But I have an almost complete set of Exiles, Volume 1. If you guys remember that series from the early 2000s, Judd Winnick came over, and it's sort of like Sliders with superheroes, if you remember that TV show. And it brought back some Age of Apocalypse characters and stuff. But basically, we had Mimic, Blink, Age of Apocalypse, Cyclops, Morph, and a few other characters. They would go on missions for this mysterious benefactor where they would go into different dimensions, timelines, whatever it is, and they would have to fix things, and over time they had high stakes. People would die, people would be replaced. Just, 2, 3 little issue story arcs going all over the place. And I think it's issue 23 or 24. That book has popped also because it's the first Iron Man as Doctor Doom. And on the cover, it is Iron Man with Doctor Doom's cloak. I have that also that's popped. So Treehouse of Horror, Sam and Max, this book, and an Exiles cover have all popped, all on the outside of the realm of YouTube. Just kind of sandwich this show all around there together and stuff, right? So it just kind of shows there are things going on out there in the world that has nothing to do with these spec channels and stuff. You have no idea how happy that makes me, because that just shows that the actual comic book hobby has a heartbeat all of its own, and at least the hobby is going to be just fine, if you use your head. What we got here? 62 Lefty Blues. I told my son I would have my collection priced before I die. Yeah. I'm at an age where I'm actually thinking about selling my record collection. I'm definitely thinning out my comic book collection. And I am also, I have a bunch of paperbacks in this house. I'm probably going to keep my Philip Jose Farmer, my Destroyer books, but I'm about to probably get rid of those also. Take them to a McKay, trade them in, and probably take cash instead of store credit. I can at least get 60% for them. There we go. Jim Califer art. Yes. In those Exiles. Absolutely. I have numerous original art from those issues. Great stuff. Now, let me plug Charlton 66 Instagram, right? You guys have got to go see the Instagram. You have to see his original art collection. 2017, 2018, I was lucky enough to be in there and to see his statues, his collection, and that artwork on the wall. And he's gotten more since then. And you have to go on his Instagram. You have to do it. I mean, go right now. Go right now. And check his stuff out. Steve, I hope you don't mind me pushing your stuff, but you've got some beautiful original art. And I still have, let me think. I'm trying to think if it was a page. Jose Garcia Lopez. I have an art page of his from DC Comics Presents. I have an art page of Legion 94, well, Legion 89, something like that. And then, why am I going blank? I have a Jim Califor page also. And I'm trying to think which ones we worked out there. You sent me and stuff, but appreciate it, man. We have Jim Califor. You guys need to go check that stuff out. And I've actually got the comic book pages over here, but I'm not going to get them. Guys, I appreciate everybody coming out. Again, make sure that you have subscribed. Make sure you thumb it up, hit that bell. Like I said, some of us have got work tomorrow, so we're going to call it a night. But thanks for sitting here with me. And there's probably going to be a few other shows sprinkled throughout the weekend that'll probably be topical. As long as these, it'll still be comic related, but it'll be topical and stuff, right? And one of the things I'm thinking about talking about is YouTube and collecting. Has it been a waste of time? That's something to talk about. All right. Charlton 66, thanks for all the kind words. Hey, man, I know they're kind words to you, but to me, it's just speaking the truth, man. So, yeah, appreciate it, brother. All right, guys, everybody be cool out there. Everybody be excellent to each other. And read your comics, man. Read your comics. Later. Thanks for everybody popping in, man. Great show. Great to see everybody. Till next time.